Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Author Success Show. The special guest we have today is Maitreya Dasa, who is the author of the book Escape to Paradise and Beyond. Maitreya is an Englishman who began looking abroad for the fulfillment of his life. His great adventure, which took him to 70 countries, started as a search for personal happiness but ended as a quest for truth. Along the way, he realized universal truths that have existed in human society for 2 million years, according to the Vedic scriptures. He understood his true nature was the soul, not the material body. In 1979, he was initiated into the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He was also given the spiritual name Maitreya Dasa. Before becoming an initiated Vaishnava, Maitreya took various jobs from a privileged expatriate worker in Africa to a road sweeper in Scotland. Since dedicating his life to the service of Lord Krishna, he has served as a priest, cook, book distributor, treasurer, farmer, gardener, and landscaper. He has lectured on Vedic philosophy for more than 40 years. It is indeed my privilege to have Maitreya on Author Success Show. Hello, Maitreya. Welcome to Author Success Show.
Hello, nice to speak to you, Jyotsna.
It's indeed a pleasure for me, Maitreya, to have this opportunity to interview you. I love interviewing authors, especially the ones who have worked with Happy Self Publishing, because we know you more closely. So we know your life experiences, and I just want the rest of the world also to know more about you, which is why I requested you to come on the show.
Thank you very much. And thank you for helping me with the publication.
It's been a pleasure for my team to know you and your journey. So, Maitreya, we published your book, Escape to Paradise and Beyond, a few months ago. But when was the first time you thought that you should be writing a book?
Well, I've had the idea for many years because when you find the truth, when you find your experiences in life explained,
Hmm.
then naturally you want to share that experience with other people. But I tried. There was one small publisher was had agreed to publish the book, but the last minute they pulled out. They said they couldn't do justice to the story,
Okay.
and I was communicating regularly with a vanity publisher, and I wasn't sure whether I should go with that or not. But eventually, I found Happy Self Publishing, and it seemed like it would be possible then. Before it was, I wasn't sure whether I would be able to get the book published or not. But when I found you and your team, then I was very happy with the help that you gave, the support that you gave, especially from Annalie, project manager, and of course
Yeah.
Shmita, who uploaded the book to Amazon.
I'm so happy we got the opportunity to do that. So, your search for the truth began several years ago. So, could you take us back to the year 1979 and tell our viewers and listeners what was your search for and how did you find the answer in Krishna consciousness?
Well, I began in when I was 23. I left home for the first time, and I was looking for happiness in the beginning. I was not happy living in England. I was not happy with the ethos of the countrymen, and I actually failed in romance. So I started looking further abroad. So I got a job in Africa as an expatriate worker on a copper mine,
Mhm.
and for 2 years I lived the expatriate life, privileged expatriate life, and that started my search, because when I went back to England after 2 years, I realized I would never be able to, after that, leading that privileged life, I would never be able to go back to living in England again. And so I tried various occupations and eventually decided to go to uh, Australia
Mhm.
overland. So on the way, I had an epiphany in Malaysia. And then after that epiphany, which is described in my memoir,
Mhm.
I gave up looking for sense gratification, material sense gratification, and started looking for the truth. And then that began my search. And that took a number of years. I traveled. I drove between England and India for 5 years, overland driver. And eventually I ended up in Copenhagen, in Denmark.
Right.
I was a dishwasher in a prestigious hotel there, and that's when I got my ultimate realization that Krishna is everything. I experienced there. And then I decided to go to South America. I toured South America for 6 months on my own. Ended up in Guyana, where I went to a temple of Hare Krishna, and I found the books of the Vedic literatures, and therein I found the truth, and then I became a devotee within 1 year.
Wow. I'm sure you've had a lot of opportunities to share your message since then through your talks and discourses inside your ashram, maybe. But at what point did you feel that this could also be converted into a book?
Well, I always had in mind the book because I realized I'd led such a blessed life.
Yeah.
That I was very fortunate, and I began to think that I should share my story, or not share it, but give the information, so that other people could get inspired by it.
Right.
And so it wasn't feasible. I didn't really seriously think about it until about 2003, I think it was, when I was given a laptop converter adapter, and I got the internet for the first time.
Right.
And I found I was blown away by all the information I found there that could substantiate my story. And then I took it more seriously, and then eventually I wrote the first draft, which is actually double what it is now.
Right.
So I edited out 50% to make it more readable.
Sure.
And then you came along and helped with the rest.
What makes you wonder, Maitreya, is these days, the moment somebody does something, immediately within the next couple of months, they want to share it in the form of a book. But you've had this rich life experience for all these years, but yet you took your time to do your research and compile it in the form of a book, right? Have you ever felt that you should have done this sooner?
Well, yes, well, in a sense, but Krishna, we understand that Krishna, I accept that Krishna is the supreme controller. We're not the doers. So in a sense, there has to be the right time and place to do it. And so that's more or less why I didn't do it before, because generally for devotees, their past lives are of no interest. But so in that sense, we actually distribute the books of Srila Prabhupada, our founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We distribute his books because therein is all the pure knowledge. So my memoir is only a help for people to be inspired by my experience, to look to the heart, just to understand that God is within the heart, Krishna is within your heart, and that he can actually help you in your spiritual quest if you're so motivated.
Yeah, I totally agree, having to do things at the right time and not regret that it didn't happen earlier, or, why didn't I do this before? So while writing a memoir, there are so many things that have happened in your life, Maitreya. So did you write it in chronological order, or how did you also choose to have certain parts included in the book and leave out certain parts? Because I know you initially wrote a longer book. How was the process of, first of all, writing it and then condensing it into the shorter version that we've published now?
Yes. Well, that was easy because I had the timeline was well established. The turning points, the decisions I made in my life, they were very clear to me from the first realization I had when I was about that was about when I was about 17, that I shouldn't dawdle through life. it wasn't, there was something to be learnt in life. It wasn't just eating, sleeping, and then working and dying, but there was more to life than that. So that from that first realization over so many years, my experience in Africa of experiencing how material life and thinking I was happy to be alive, realizing that material happiness was not substantial, and going on from that. So all the turning points, decisions, landmark events were all already clearly, the thread was there. So I just had to join them all together. And the timeline I established by scrutinizing passport, over 100 pages of passports, with the stamps, all my travels over the years.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had those passports. Otherwise, to recollect things that happened 30 years ago would have been quite difficult,
It
especially
would have
with
been
the
impossible.
accurate timelines.
Yes, so I had the passports, so I just had to fill in the gaps, which wasn't very difficult.
Right.
But Krishna is the source of remembrance. Mata smriti jnanam apohanam cha. From knowledge comes remembrance. It's if we wake up without memory, our lives are finished. We depend upon Krishna in so many ways. When we wake up in the morning, for instance, unless he reminds us, we don't know who we are. We can't wake ourselves up. Krishna is maintaining our status quo in all respects in the material world. So without his mercy, we can do nothing. So realizing everything depends upon Krishna's mercy. Without his mercy, we cannot even tie our shoelaces.
Yeah.
Is very it's very humbling. And I know we speak a lot about self-esteem and believing in yourself, but actually, to be quite truthful, for myself, I think I am nothing.
Without the grace
No,
of
this
God.
is a fact. It's the experience. There's nothing. Without Krishna's help, you cannot better your life. You cannot have understanding. You cannot have remembrance or anything. So with realizing your total dependence upon Krishna is very important to developing a humble attitude in life.
Yeah. So how does one balance it, Maitreya? Because once you know that the grace of God that makes you who you are, sometimes it becomes easy for us to become complacent, right? That I don't have to do anything; God will take care. So,
Yes.
how do you balance between doing what you're supposed to do and then leaving the rest to God?
Well, these are very good questions. Of course, we have to use our intelligence. We can't just sit down. Arjuna wanted to do that in the Bhagavad Gita. He didn't want to fight the big battle at Kurukshetra. He had reasons for doing that. But Krishna told him, even if you decide not to fight, you will fight anyway because that's your nature. You won't be able to do nothing. You will have to fight. So that's your nature. So the idea is we should act with valor in all circumstances, use our intelligence, but understand that Krishna is the doer. This is the important thing. Not only is Krishna the doer, he is the cause of the results of our activities also.
Right.
We cannot claim to be the cause of the results of our activities. This is karma, as you reap, so you shall sow.
Yeah.
So Krishna is control of that, all those things. So that was essential in considering publishing my memoir. Remembrance of that fact that Krishna is actually the doer. We are not the doers in any circumstance, not in the material world or the spiritual world. Krishna is always the controller, and we are always the controlled.
Yeah, that actually makes us more humble also, right? Once we realize that we are not the real doer.
It's the only way. Otherwise I couldn't have written my memoir. The only reason I could write my memoir was that I'd risen above it and understood that actually I was not the doer.
Right.
And I look back and actually, when I wrote the first draft, it was very long, but I had think twice about reading it, because if I started reading it, I'd be up all night because I found it so, and it was a great source of happiness to write it also, the remembrance.
Yeah. So did you have any target reader in mind for whom you wrote the book?
No. Actually, the Bhagavad Dharma, the knowledge of Vedic knowledge, should be started from 5 years of age. This knowledge should be known to every living entity. So the
Right.
target audience actually is general, but it's going to be more appealing to people who are fed up with the status quo of modern life.
Because that's when their search begins, and they may find the
Yes,
answers in your book.
yes, and to understand that there is an alternative to living in this lost civilization that we're living in now.
Right.
Not so much in India, maybe, where there's still remnants of Vedic culture, but even that's becoming very tenuous now, I think.
Yeah. No, everybody is like uh, going towards materialistic uh, pursuits, and
Yes.
goals and targets are all based on materialistic things. So how does one understand that the true happiness is not in that? Because theoretically, yeah, in India, we are all initiated to the Bhagavad Gita from an early age. We know that this is what is the ultimate truth. But then when it comes to practically following it in life, when you know that, your neighbor has bought this beautiful car, your aunt has moved to
Yes.
a bigger house, we tend to set goals based on what the world thinks should be the next step for us, and we keep chasing after those goals. So what would be an easy way to realize that happiness isn't something else?
Well, devotional service is like analogy is given of having a honey jar. You can have a honey jar, but you have to open the jar and taste the honey. So you have to engage in devotional service. It is impossible to give up lower activities unless you get a taste for higher activities.
Right.
Once you have the taste for higher activity, then you can give up the lower activities. So, like in my epiphany, I experienced a happiness that I'd undreamt of. So then I was able to give up, or begin to try to give up the material propensities for selfish gratification. Not just selfish, but extended to family. It can be extended to family, to nation, even to world. But it's all based upon selfish sense gratification. So when you experience the higher taste, you can give up the lower taste. So you have to, first of all, the first step is actually to associate with spiritually minded people, devotees especially, to acquire the faith.
Yeah.
When you acquire the faith, then you can begin the following. Bhajana Kriya, you get initiated. You decide to become initiated, to have a guru who can actually give you that knowledge. It's not a material sound vibration. It's a spiritual sound vibration coming from the spiritual world, and it has to be vibrated by the pure devotee. So you get the association of a guru, and then you become initiated. And then you can taste the honey within the jar, but you don't have to wait till knowledge actually comes, because the first thing is that when you perform devotional service, the first thing you experience is the mitigation of material distress. The first thing that disappears, you become peaceful.
Right.
Even before knowledge comes.
Sure. So, what could be some examples of these devotional service that devotees practice at ISKCON? This has got nothing to do with becoming an author, but it's just my personal curiosity that's making me ask you this.
Yes, this is very good. We've asked very good questions and a very nice conversation. Thank you. Some devotees, I've lived full time for 40 years, more than 40 years in a temple. I have not lived outside the temple. Or for the 1-2 years, we started a farm in Southern California, but that was for the temple. It was part of service for the temple. But you don't have to. Most of our members are actually grihastas. They live outside the temple.
They have a family and a job.
They have a family. They make their homes into a temple of Krishna, and they follow the same principles, and they give 50% of their income to the temple, and they follow the same program, but they do it at home. And it's not necessary to give up your whatever your interest is, occupation in life. It's not necessary to give that up. You just have to change your consciousness and do it for Krishna. Give the results to Krishna. and then you're going to achieve perfection of life, and you'll be freed from birth and death, old age and disease.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing this, because the general misconception out there is that you need to become a monk and live in a temple or an ashram to become spiritually evolved. But then there are other alternate paths also. So I'm glad that you shared that here.
Yes, some of the great acharyas, they were married, had families, had job, work.
Sure.
Yes, you don't have to be a renunciant. You can be married in married life. Married life, according to religious principles, is not condemned at all.
Hmm. That's good to know, Maitreya. So, what would be your message to all those people out there who also had interesting journeys and they want to share it with the world, but something is stopping them from writing a book? Their memoir can change many lives, but they're not taking that first step. What would be your advice to them?
Well, they should see it as devotional service. If they have those realizations, they should. I'm always encouraging devotees to write their memoirs, because it's very important in substantiating your realizations, so that you don't forget them, because time can destroy, especially in this age of Kali Yuga, time destroys all the good qualities of human beings very quickly. Very quickly. So it's important that you keep progressing in spiritual life, that you don't waste time, you don't waste a moment, because you cannot buy back a moment wasted time in life with all the money in the world. With all the wealth in the world, you cannot buy back one wasted moment.
Right.
So we do not want to die in ignorance, born in ignorance and die in ignorance. Otherwise, our lives will be lived in vain.
Very well said. So I think looking at writing your story as a way to serve others and as a way to serve God could actually be the right next step, rather than thinking about yourself and what would the world think about you. If it's about looking at it as a service to humanity, that could actually help more people write their books.
Yes, yes. If you have that realization, of course, if you don't have anything to say, you're wasting your time.
Yeah,
You have to have some realization,
sure.
something to communicate, some experiences that has improved your life. That is the difference between so-called external religion and real religion, because real religion is experience, changes the heart. That's the proof of the real religious experience, the genuine, because it changes your heart internally. You become a changed person.
Right.
And quite often these experiences aren't, and they shouldn't be, subject to reason, because Krishna Tasi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriyai. Krishna cannot be known with material senses. Only when Krishna reveals himself to you can he be understood.
Wow, that's also really profound, Maitreya. I just have this final thing to ask you. So we read a lot of manuscripts that come to us, but yours really stood out, not just because of the quality of experiences that you shared, but even the quality of your writing. It's, for a first time author, it's like at a very high level. So how did you develop the skill of writing? Is it by reading other books, or did you have experience in writing other forms of text? How did this skill develop?
No, I never read. I'm only reading now. I'm reading bestsellers just to see what I'm competing with. But I'm not very impressed, quite honestly. There are not many books out there that are worth reading, because you're not going to learn anything about them. You might learn how to overcome material miseries, but then there's no higher goal or in life. No higher goal in life. How to end birth and death is the important thing. That's why all devotees should write their memoirs, because the information they can provide is going to help people overcome birth and death.
Right. So you don't really have like a secret strategy that you use to develop your writing?
Well, no, the writing came very naturally. I was never a writer. I didn't have any desires to become a writer, but I was a poet. I had a vision initially of knowledge, and I wrote many poems. I've lost them all now, but I wrote poems. But the writing was a joy to do. So I suppose in that sense, that was communicated. But I must say that I had the help of Grammarly.
That, of
I
course,
used that
helps you to a certain extent. Yeah.
extensively, yes. But as
Right.
far as the editing concerned, that mainly I did that myself, the main part of the editing, because I knew the thread of the story that had to be told. And that's why I hesitated to go with any other publisher, because in the editing they might have cut out things which are very important. They wouldn't have understood the thread as perhaps you might, or even more initiated devotee might, because the way I went to there are certain sacred places for devotees, Dwarka in India, Mathura, and Vrindavan. The way I actually visited Dwarka and Jagannath Puri was according to I began to follow my destiny. I understood that I realized I had a personal destiny. So the way I went to those places was very interesting. You can read in the reading. It's explained in my memoir how those things happened, but they were definitely, I understood as Krishna's mercy to me that I was directed to those places even before I understood fully the message of Krishna consciousness.
Right. I'm sure the viewers and the listeners would be, excited to read your book. So we are going to have the link to Escape to Paradise and Beyond right below in the show notes. Thank you so much, Maitreya, once again for coming on Author Success Show and sharing your wisdom with us. I personally learned so much from you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I mean, there is so much to be discussed. Maybe we can do it again sometime. I would look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now that you're you're a co-author of our next collaboration book, One Decision Away. Maybe after the launch of that, we would love to have you once again on Author
Yes,
Success Show.
that would be very nice. Your goal there is very nice. What is it? Mission to elevate the consciousness of humanity one book at a time. Very admirable goal, and I wish you the best with that.
Thank you so much, Maitreya. With the support of authors like you, I'm sure we are going to touch many more lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jyotsna, and thank you to your team for all the help they've given me.